What's going on, everybody? Once again, it is another episode of What We Talking About. I, as always, am your guy, Aaron T. Montgomery, and the T stands for tremendous. Over there is my co-host,
Donovan Woods, and I'm happy to be here in Montgomery. I thought it stood for Troy, but hey, maybe it did. I don't know. I don't know each week what you're going to say, but I like it. I like what you're doing.
only on the birth certificate.
Okay. So this evening we are talking about something that's very special to my heart. I know it's special to your heart as well, Montgomery. And let me give everybody just a little bit of history as to, in the setup as to why we chose this. But back in 1983, the video game industry had a major crash. It pretty much was done. No one thought it would ever come back. And it was due to an overabundance of different consoles, and people were using different things. And if you can imagine, your friend had an Atari 2600, your other friend had an Atari 5200, your other friend had an Intellivision, and your other friend had a ColecoVision. You guys could never play together. So it just didn't work. On top of that, you had the personal home computers becoming a big thing at that time, and they were really priced at the same amount as these home video gaming systems. And I say home because if you're not old enough to remember, there were things called arcades before Dave and Buster's, and that's really where we all found Pac-Man and games like that. But 1985, things changed. 1985 was the launch of Nintendo Entertainment Systems, or the NES system. And by 1988, Nintendo was the dominant player in the market, owning 70% of the market with a $2.3 billion revenue share at that point. And again, we're talking 1988. But now, let's do this. Let's go back 35 years to around 1985, 1986, to where my generation fell in love with video games and home gaming systems and how it changed everything. And to do that, I'm going to invite one of our friends here, our first guest on the show, Mr. Quentin Blue. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great. I'm doing so great I even brought my own decal. Today's guest.
Appreciate
Quentin
that.
Blue.
We appreciate that. Yes. Now, let me set the stage for everybody. Quentin, you're a little younger than us, but when did you first discover the original NES?
Well, I'm a little younger than you, and I'm also a little bit poor. So I grew up, I didn't get into a little bit later in life. I was probably about 9 years old. At that time, its system had been out, as you said, for about 3 or 4 years at that point. So I had to wait. And once I got it, I got it. But I didn't get the one that everybody else got. I got the one that was with the original Mario Classic. One controller, no dunk cut, no gun. My parents didn't believe in violence. But when I got the thing home and I set it down on top of that floor model 32-inch TV and I plugged in that coaxial cable, I was ready to make it happen. That was my experience.
Hold on. The original Mario Brothers?
Yes, the arcade
not
version.
Super. No Super, just
no
Mario.
Super. No, we were Southeast DC.
Y'all can't get nothing about our people. Good Lord. You know what? I appreciate you sharing that story. I'll Aaron, before I say mine, Aaron, what was your story? When did you first get your first NES or Nintendo?
Wow. So, I mean, I know it was after it came out, years after it came out, rather. My family did have an Atari beforehand because my father was a man who loved gadgets. So he had the Atari. The Nintendo just popped up one day. One day I came home, my brother and my father were downstairs playing it. I don't even know if I was like aware of it, like I had seen commercials or anything like that, but they were playing it. And then that became the thing. Every day after school, I'm racing home, trying to beat my sister home to be the first one to get on Super Mario Brothers. That was the game. That was everything. And so some years after that, probably 88, I'm thinking, is when I got my own, and I did get the one with the Super Mario Duck Hunt collab in one cartridge. So that was where it all started.
Same. Okay. Well, then that's similar to my story. I was 12, so it was 1989. So I was several years afterwards, but I had played it. My friends had it in 5th grade. I fell in love with it. Whether it was Duck Hunt or Mario Brothers, I just wanted to play it all the time. It was the first time that there was something in the house that wanted me to stay in more than I wanted to actually be outside playing basketball, playing dodgeball, playing whatever was going on outside. And that was different because before that, everybody was always outside. Everybody was outside. But the Nintendo, for me at least, it kept me in. And the first game I had, same thing. I had the, I think it was $99 when my parents got it. And it came with the Duck Hunt, came with Super Mario Brothers. Duck Hunt, I played. It was fun. That gun just did not work for me, and I hated that stupid dog that would laugh at you. But Super Mario Brothers, I mean, my sister and I, we could play that for hours and hours, and I guess we all did. Do you remember when you first beat that game?
No, I don't recall.
It's okay. It's okay.
Quentin, did you? Hold on, Quentin. We talking about this game. Quentin, when did you get Super Mario Brothers? Since you started with the original.
Honestly, I never got it. I went right to number 2 and then number 3. I never had the original. We never had Dunk Hunt. Our family does not believe in violence. Put the guns away.
What's the violence thing? I don't know. I don't know.
I didn't have it, guys.
That's messed up. Hey, you know what though? You're here. You didn't get lost in the streets. We God, so they chose right. They chose right. They did what they had to do for their family. Now, just kind of going through some of the games that really grabbed my attention as a kid, and I'm sure they grabbed a lot of people's attention. What were some of your favorite games, Quentin? Once you actually got your system, maybe you got a little part-time job, do something to get your own games. Besides Mario, what did you like to play?
Well, for me, you guys know, it's always been the same. It's always been sports. So give me Tecmo Bowl, give me Double Dribble. That's
Yes.
where I lived my life. That was pretty much it.
Double Dribble.
Quentin,
How
Hold
many-
on, was
it had,
that those were
go
the
ahead.
first? Those were the first sports games you had. Was Tecmo Bowl and Double Dribble?
Honestly, I played a little bit of Jordan versus Bird, but I didn't like the gameplay of it. I mean, Double Dribble was terrible as well, but one-on-one, that's not my thing. Double Dribble, I had my Double Dribble for so long. In order to clean it, I washed it on purpose. On purpose. I know we're going to get into other stuff. I washed it on purpose, and now from that point forward, it said Double Dibble instead of Double Dribble. But it worked every single time, though. Every single time.
There were so many tricks that I've heard over the years like that. The one that really comes to mind, you mentioned that, was when your system started getting old, or as a kid you were just abusing the thing. There's two. One was you would blow it, go in there, rope, blow it out. You seemed to work. The other was you push it in just slightly and then slam it down. Sure, that wasn't good for it, but it seemed to last forever.
Not at all.
Double drip, Jordan versus Bird. Wow, Jordan versus Bird. I loved it. Jordan was just on the scene. They really gypped him in that game because he had no jumper. It was either dunk or nothing. They had dunk contests, I want to say, and it had a 3-point shootout. And if you were Bird, which my dad was always Bird, I'd lose because he's shooting threes all day, and you couldn't beat that. But Double Dribble had about what, like 4 major teams, major cities?
Yeah, it had Boston, New York, L.A., and Chicago.
There you go. That's the 80s. Then in the early 90s. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
I did
That
love
was
some
it.
Double
That was-
Dribble. You could shoot falling out of bounds. That was the shot. Shooting that thing out of bounds, falling, 3 points. Game.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it was one way. If you're going to the left, you could hit anything. If you're going to the right, you had to go to that corner spot at the top of the screen, and that was money. But everything else was about 50-50.
Yeah, very
Was Double
true.
Dribble the
But-
game where I think it really was the only basketball game I played other than Jordan versus Bird until the NBA Lives came around? Or Chicago versus LA, games like that. Was Double Dribble the game where we first saw slow motion dunking? Was that game?
Oh, those dunking cutaways were amazing. And
loved
the rare moment would you actually get a block during the dunk cutaway? Did you ever get that?
Mm-hmm.
That was like the holy grail.
I don't know if I ever
was
could you
pretty
play another
special.
person? I think it was 2-player, right?
Yeah.
Definitely.
Okay, I
Definitely.
never played other people in that game. It was always me and the computer. All right.
I'll tell you how I know this. My good friends that we've mentioned before, Chuck and Kyle, the two brothers, they would get into it over this game, and if the ball was stolen too much, a controller would be used as a weapon toward the other. No stealing rules were enforced.
There we go. There we go. I like that. Okay, moving on a little bit from just Double Dribble and Jordan versus Bird. Aaron, what were some of your favorite games? Your go-tos?
Okay. I had a list. I didn't want to step on anybody else's toes.
No,
I'm
go
sure
ahead.
I'll mention one or two that somebody else had. Of course, Super Mario. Sorry, Quentin, you missed out on something there. Super Contra, which was better than the original.
You think so?
What you got to
I don't know about that
agree
one.
with
Hold
you.
on, hold on. These are my favorites. Calm down. Back off. Southeast, no more. Come on. Tecmo Super Bowl. Better
Okay,
than the first. 'cause you had
pause.
Double dip.
Hold on. Everything I Googled said that. It said Tecmo Super Bowl. But as a kid, everybody called it Super Tecmo Bowl. Did that change,
They
you
were
think, over
wrong.
time? Okay, it was always called Super, whatever you just said.
Tecmo Super Bowl. Yes, that's
Okay,
what it
I
was
never called
called.
it that. All right.
Yes, yes. Fantastic game. I will play. Actually, I have it, pirated version of it in my living room right now.
Shocking.
Shocker.
Do y'all remember the car game Rad Racer?
I do.
That
Yes.
was. I remember beating that game, Donnie. It was a phenomenal day because that last track, like when you get close to the flagpole, you would start coasting and
Right.
the music would slow down, and
Right.
then you would get past it and be like, that was everything. I finally beat that game over my friend Michael Falkerts at that time. You remember that?
Folkers, good lord, yeah. Could you,
Beat it at his house. So.
at that game, could you save the game?
No.
That's what I
It was
thought.
one-
Tecmo Bowl was the first one I remember being
one-shot
able to
deal.
save. Okay.
I think you could save. I never played the original Legend of Zelda, but I believe that you could save that and continue from a spot because that was a very long game.
Yes, it was.
I had a couple more, but one I will mention because I don't think either of you two will. The game Jaws, phenomenal game. Phenomenal game. It came out after the last Jaws had been released, Jaws: Revenge, when they finally killed it with the tip of the boat, because that was how you killed him in the game. You had to do all the stuff. You get this cool little sub, and then you fought Jaws. You hit him with the tip of the boat. He died. Me and my sister played that one too. I played a lot of video games with my sister at this time. She was the closest to me in age, so good times.
I didn't get into adventure games as much. Okay, well, I could get the system earlier than Quentin, but we did not get games at all. Like, literally, somehow there was this reasoning that if you rented the game, it was cheaper than going to buy the game at Blockbuster. Blockbuster was new in the scene, so we go and rent it for 3 weeks, and it ended up being like $45 anyway, but that's neither here nor there. But the games that come to mind that I spent the most time on, I think the top 3 would be Mike Tyson's Punch-Out, Super Tecmo Bowl, that's what I call it, and probably Metroid. Metroid was the only adventure game that I fell in love with. The soundtrack, the puzzle that it was, you're walking all over. The password or the code was Justin Bailey.
Yep.
That was the code to get you whatever you need to get. I think to get to Mother Brain, who was the enemy there, protagonist. And then you also had Samus was the actual name of the character. And years later, way after I started playing it, that I realized or find out that Samus was actually, surprise, a girl. So there you go, Star Wars. You didn't need to create a superhero girl. There was already superhero girls. So yeah.
The password there, Justin Bailey, is a Bailey in Australia is a swimsuit. So just in Bailey, when you put that in, she wouldn't have the full armor on anymore. So that's why
That sounds a little shady.
that's where that came from. She wasn't in a swimsuit, but it was like she
Sure.
didn't have the uniform on anymore. I never played that game. I don't know.
I bet.
Yeah, I didn't really enjoy playing adventure games either, especially back in that day. I did enjoy Metroid's music. The music, I would
Yes.
sit as other people played it, but the music was amazing.
Totally agree with
Agreed.
that. I did not like Zelda, and I know people watching those are some of the biggest games ever made. Zelda or Link, Castlevania, those things didn't really catch me either. Quentin,
Never
I was
played that
definitely into sports. Did you ever beat Mike Tyson in Mike Tyson's Punch-Out?
I did not. No, I have not.
I've
Ever.
only seen it done once. My dad did that. His thumb was about as blistered as I could. I mean, he had that thing taped up for probably a week because that controller led itself
it.
to just destroying your fingers. It would just leave these
did.
white circles. Ah,
It brings me to another question. So, I know we're talking about how much we love the system, our favorite games, and all that. Let me ask you this: what do you think made that system so iconic? Because I think it. First of all, I think it had a longer run than any console that came after it. Because after that, it seemed like
sure.
almost every 5 years, a new console was coming out. So, what made the Nintendo Entertainment System such a fantastic console to have?
historically, go ahead. No, go ahead, Q. You're the guest.
I'm sorry. I'm not. Yeah, I think it was for what I missed out on. Mario. Mario coming on the scene as part of NES and has carried it to this day is the main reason why I feel like it's had the longevity that it had.
Okay.
Okay.
I'll go with not so much a character, but just the availability. As I mentioned earlier, I remember adults having computer games, and the computer games were great. If you had, one of your parents' friends had a computer, you can go over and watch it. It was fantastic. But the Nintendo was made for kids. It wasn't any doubt about it. It was for kids. There were 2 controllers, and the games lent themselves to talking about it. Everyone that I knew talked about these games. Prior to Nintendo, there were no magazines that came out that people subscribed to and were, reading codes and finding out all the little secret things. This just seemed to be the beginning of everything. The other systems, it felt like a profit machine. This felt like their whole purpose was to make a video game and to grow it. And I felt like Nintendo did that better than anybody else at the time.
I agree. I think one thing that helped it, you mentioned in the opening, Donnie, you were talking about how the other systems that were out there, they got bogged down with a lot of games, but your friend might not have that system or that game. So something that kept Nintendo together, y'all remember if you got the box, it would have that little gold seal on it in the bottom corner of the box. That was the Nintendo seal of approval for this game. So what Nintendo did was put in place a system of standards for the third parties to make games. Nintendo had to approve it. It would get that stamp, then they could market it or distribute it to be sold. That kept games at a high quality, which helped out a lot. All the games we mentioned that came out over the lifetime of the system, they stayed at a consistently high level of entertainment, because that's what it was all about. That helped the system to continue for so long, and they weren't scared to really take chances with certain things. You think of all the peripherals that came out with the system. You had that little robot thing that came out from the jump, from the first time it came on. It had the light gun that you said you didn't have, Quentin. It had a 4 score. So in later games, you could have 4 people playing the game.
Right.
They were the first system to do that, and they just weren't scared to do things. They had some that failed. The Power Glove, y'all remember that thing?
I do. I wanted one. About it? Never saw one.
Never saw one ever. I mean, and from everything I read about it said it was garbage. It never really worked, but it got the marketing out there, because you remember the first time you probably saw it in action was the movie The Wizard.
That's correct.
And that game was that movie rather was also used to promote Super Mario Brothers 3. Which
let me pause there for a second, Aaron, because I want to put somebody on the spot, our guest. Now, Quentin, your parents were all against gun violence. How do they feel about wizards?
Yeah, same thing. We don't believe in wizardry either. So, check. Moving on.
I love it. Aaron, now something else I would say made this great. Nothing else came on the market for a long time. There were so many games for this system that I never played. And as I was doing research for this particular episode, most of the games I'd seen before, even if I hadn't played them, but there were a lot in the top 100 that people love that I had never even seen the covers for. There was, and I assuming if you're that, you're that quality to someone, it was a good game. So like you said, the quality had to be there. And even when we went on to a new system, it wasn't like it was, I don't want to play that Nintendo anymore. People still played it. You passed it down to the generation behind you, or you kept playing it yourself if you couldn't get the new system. And it started something that never happened before. And it was just, again, right on time, perfect time in our generation, 1985 to 1990.
But the funny thing is that it became so popular, like Quentin said, with Mario having that game figure that became so popular. Super Mario Brothers 3 grossed $500 billion in sales.
It's a fantastic video game.
It's ridiculous. I remember the commercials for it with people around the world screaming Mario. Like it had a whole marketing campaign behind it. It was ridiculous. But like you said, 1990, then other systems started to come out to compete, but Nintendo still held on to its market share. Like, Sega came out with the Genesis, which was good. That's the next system I had. But yes. Sega is no more. Nintendo's still here. Mario is still here. It's a non-stop thing.
What? So, okay, I guess in my mind that wasn't how it went, but I guess you're right. It went from Nintendo was what, an 8-bit? And did it jump to
No, I think it was 16.
16?
It went from 16 to 32 to 64.
What was 32? That was Genesis?
The second one, I believe the Sega Saturn.
Oh, I don't know
Yeah, the Sega
anyone that
Saturn.
had that.
I
I
played
never
it. It
never
was
played it.
okay. But it was a misstep. It's a whole. So I listened to a good podcast about it that talks about the whole back and forth between Sony and Nintendo, and Sega's in the middle of that because they're trying to hold on to their market share, and they just got completely ran over by Sony, and that's why Sega's no more. But it was it had a moment, but they missed the boat. They went the wrong direction with it.
Do you feel like, as to why Nintendo, for us, kind of faded to the background, do you feel it was an age thing where once you had a Genesis and the quality, again, this is just my peers, the quality of your Joe Montana football to your Madden, did Madden come out on Nintendo or is it only on the Genesis forward?
I never played it on Nintendo, and I
Same.
didn't see it on the list of games for
Same.
it, so I don't believe it ever came on Nintendo. And I had a Genesis by then, so I had stopped playing Nintendo.
That's a huge thing to me. When the sports games, I don't think Nintendo ever cared, and they never perfected sports games. Even when the Nintendo Cube came out, they had those titles, but everyone played them on the Xbox or PlayStation. So they focus on adventure and fun, and it's worked for them. I mean, from the Wii to the Game Boy, they were innovative. They continued to push the game forward, and I think that's the memory we have is so powerful because one, it was probably all of our first gaming systems, but it also just like you said, was it Aaron? You played with your sister. Those memories of
Right.
just being with your family. Same with me and my sister. Being with my family. Me and my dad would play Mike Tyson's Punch Out. We take turns. Those memories at that time in your life just meant so much, and I think Nintendo was perfect for that new generation. Now, Quentin, did your parents believe in letting you play with other children when you played the Nintendo?
So that's an interesting point. Like I am the oldest, and my brother is 10 years younger than me. So me and my sister, 5 years difference, we weren't playing video games together. So by the time he came on the scene, I had a PlayStation. 10 years down the road, I was letting him play with him. So he thought, how you remove the controller and he's pushing the buttons. He thinks he's doing something. So that's the time that we spent together. But my early game was always single player games by myself. That's why I enjoy sports games, adventure games where you die a bunch of times. I got frustrated with those things because I was playing alone. So that's why I really didn't gravitate towards those.
Q didn't play any violent games, but he spent his formative years lying to his little brother.
Now I played violent games later on in life, but I just wanted more graphics. I wanted more
These are my
graphics.
confessions. And real quick, one other point. You mentioned, Aaron, being able to play with 4 people. I think
Yes.
being able to play just because it came with 2 controllers, at least my package did, and you could immediately play certain games that were dual players. And you would look for that. When we go to the store to look for a game, we would look in the back, me and my cousin. We were together for a whole weekend and whatnot. We'd go rent games that had multiplayer. That weren't just sports games like you had your Double Dragons. You had your, I think RC Pro-Am was dual player. But then you also had the second version of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, which allowed 4 people to play
4
at
players.
the same time like you were at the arcade. Blew my mind. Love that game. I mean, 1990, 91, that was a great game.
It was. That was definitely one. That was what you would buy the for. I think it was called the 4 score. You would buy that for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the arcade game, because that's what it was for. It was phenomenal.
And people like me and Quentin just depended on friends like you to have it because we were not going to get it.
Didn't have that.
No
Stock
chance.
So just to put a bow on this episode, we appreciate Quentin being here. He's a very busy man, but made time for us. I think Nintendo speaks to all of our hearts, especially those of us in that same age range, 30s and 40s and above. It still is out there. Kids still play it. I think they even brought back a version where it's kind of miniature, but you could play some of those games again. It was exciting. I went and bought one. I'll just say this. Sometimes it's good to reminisce and not remember what it really looked like, because when I put it in my system now, my TV, it looked terrible. Mega Man, all those games just look horrific. But for my memories, Nintendo was a great thing in my childhood, a big part of my childhood. So I appreciate you guys listening, and I appreciate, again, our special guest, Quentin. And we'll see you next time on What We Talking About.
Thanks, Quentin.
No problem. Glad to be here.